Hey folks, welcome to the RZDxWLVS Podcast. My name's Ian Lovelace. I'm here with my partners and co-founders, Joe Reed, Jimmy Monahan, aka Jimmy the Axe. Today we're going to get into some more stuff, kind of introduce you guys to the heartbeat of Raised by Wolves and the human beings behind the wolf pack. So I'll kick it over to the homie.
Thanks, man. Jimmy the Axe. I forgot you knew that. You know, the other side of the leg is Jimmy the Saint.
Jimmy the Saint.
It depends on,
and you need
how
both.
you know me. Either Jimmy the Axe or
Getting
Jimmy
your
the
ass
Saint.
kicked in the spiritual world, in the spiritual side of things, or in the real world.
Yeah, you got to have that evening of grace and wrath, man.
Yeah, man. It's
effective.
good, man. It's good. Keeps me balanced, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What's up, Joe?
I'm good, man. I'm
good?
good. I'm drinking some shamelessly plugging the homies at Liquid Death. Drinking some Liquid Death today, and it looks like a beer. I just wanted to throw that out
Liquid
there.
Death that brings you life, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I knew the first thing looking up at the cameras here, I was like, you know, anybody just tuning into this episode right off the bat is gonna be checking to see if they're on the right episode, if they're on the right podcast, because they see me with what looks like a what were these beers? Magnums, right? Remember the Magnums?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
These
if
are
that's a
Magnum
beer you're thinking
44s,
of.
right? I think you're too young to remember Magnums.
I mean,
no, you had to remember Magnum. You
Round
remember
Gold.
Magnum? That was a malt liquor.
Malt liquor.
Fine malt liquor. Like, Magnum
Old E.
44s.
Yeah, old E.
E.
Is what.
Yeah, this is an old.
That looks more
old
like
E.
a St. Ides can, actually.
St.
That's what I
Ides.
was thinking was like,
I thought St. Ides was
the
so
OE,
cool.
the
I thought
40s.
St. Ides were so cool because you drink the 40 down and it had the eye.
Yeah,
Remember
yeah.
the eye inside it? You
So-
couldn't really see it.
Yeah.
They were clever. You couldn't really see the eye, so you had to drink down the eye.
I always thought it was so cool because I'd drink a whole case and wake up in handcuffs.
You thought
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was cool?
You and I share that allergy, right?
thought that was
We
cool?
share the same allergy.
dude,
We're allergic to alcohol,
Yeah,
break
break-
out in halves, handcuffs.
Oh my god. Oh my god, man.
I used that line a lot
Yeah.
in recovery when I was still running
too.
around with a lot of folks that were using and trying to, hey man, you really need to drink, you really need to do this.
Oh, yeah.
Like, look, man, I'll drink it if you don't mind me breaking the beer bottle over your head in half an hour. But
All right.
That's my thing too. Hit them with the shock factor because they don't want to give up. You know, they're busting. Oh come on, man! I'm like, I'll tell you what, bro. You want me to down a whole bottle, get naked, fight somebody, and end up crying in your front room? Let's do it.
yeah. Like, nah,
I'm down. Run that screwdriver.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're good.
exactly.
We're good.
Isn't
Matter of
that
fact,
crazy?
make it a double.
That is so crazy. We talked about, we were on we did Ian's episode, and he said that he's in what'd you say? You're also in recovery from ass whoopings. Like
Well, from my temper, you know,
Yeah.
I was led by my violent impulses. You know, having to survive as a child, you know, you build these walls, they grow teeth. I was referring to that. And like I used to take the bait and put my hands on other men. I hurt a lot of dudes and I felt justified. A lot of time I was taking down bullies, but I'm healed from that. I like I was telling him on the way here, I don't have nothing to prove to nobody. And I see people through my creator's eyes. So I see their inner child. And rather than want to strike back, I'm like, oh man, that sucks. That sucks. You got to carry them feelings around.
Yeah.
Feel bad for you.
I still struggle with that. Two of my biggest struggles. I watched Jimmy's testimonial probably 10 times with 10 different people before I realized that Jimmy in his testimony says I still struggle with, and he has things that he says in recovery. I'm recovering from this.
Yeah.
I still struggle with this, and then it caught I was like, what do I struggle with? You know,
Yeah.
I started thinking like, what do I still struggle with? Because of ego, something that I'm working on. Like, I feel like sometimes I don't struggle with anything. Like, I feel like
Totally.
I'm not a pussy, and that if I want to stop doing something, I stop doing it. If I want to do something, I'm going to do it. Like, it's like, because, you know, and I think that ego is probably the biggest struggle that I have, is because I think I can take on the whole world. And with that, I took the scenic route to get here, is I still struggle with people talking down to me. Like,
Absolutely.
it's like, I immediately go from like, you know, my electric car.
Yeah,
I don't want to mention the name of the company
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
even want to give them light because it's a damn cell phone with wheels that I own now.
Yeah.
Has charger issues. Tesla people call me and try to tell me, and I'm already heated. Like, and this would have been one of those times when I was drinking that I would have just left the car at the charger port, not charging,
Yeah.
and walked over to a bar, found a bar, and didn't care if they towed it. And I was heated, and they said, do you know how to use apps? And I said, hey, it's 2020 fucking 3. Everybody knows how to use an app. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on. I'm taking it out on this person on the other end of the phone
Yeah.
that's just trying to help me. And I said, I'm sorry. And
You
she's
felt
like, I
they
understand.
were challenging
Yeah,
you.
because I had just had some banking issues, and the banker again earlier that day, because
Yeah.
I'm struggling with ego, says, I understand how you feel. And
Yeah.
because I'm in the cannabis industry, they like to freeze my accounts all the time. So they froze my account again. I got to fill out this long form and explain like why I spent $141 at Postmates.
Yeah.
I'm like, so she says, I understand how you feel. I go, really? Because you work in an industry where you're overtaxed, overregulated, and still can't bank?
Yeah.
Well, no. I said, then you don't fucking understand. And again, I had to apologize to her because I'm struggling with ego and this problem. I'm going like, no one understands my problems.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how we went down that road. But yeah,
Well,
the ass
but
whooping part.
because we're
growth-
discussing the humans
The
behind
growth piece is that you recognize it.
Yeah.
I recognize it
I
now.
mean, back in the day, we got recognized for it. Instead of recognizing it and correcting it, I got recognized for that behavior. Felt good to be recognized, so it reinforced it. It positively reinforced a negative experience,
Yeah.
which further led me to seek that negative experience because I craved positive reinforcement.
Oh, yes.
It
Right?
becomes your identity.
Yeah.
I remember.
And then you feel like you got a reputation to live
Yeah.
up to. You know?
Well, yes, because I was at a bar here in Vegas, and I had a musician buddy of mine. The venue was trying to play a game that night and trying to say, oh, well, we didn't have the right PR set up, so we're not going to be able to do the show, and we're not going to pay you the minimum. So this musician buddy of mine, which I don't mind plugging, amazing guy, you know, B Dolan, Strange Famous Records, like comes in and says, you know, hey Joe, like knowing where I'm at up here, especially because I've been drinking the whole night, come out here, we're gonna need to have a talk with this dude. So of course I'm like, yo, what's up? Like I stomp out there like, no, we're gonna fix this shit. You're gonna go get the right wires, you're gonna get the thing, we're doing this show tonight, you're paying my boy, because yeah, you gotta live up to that reputation.
Yeah.
And you can't be a punk. So it's like the whole room full of people, he's like, Joe, like, come here. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah. So it's like, what's up? So of course my girlfriend at the time, you know what I mean, is she's just like, great. You know what I mean? Like, this is gonna be a fun night. I'm like, should I just leave now or should I take the Uber home? You know what I mean? Like, because this is gonna be a bad night.
But I
And
mean,
it's
that's good to talk about this stuff because in the last episode, I was talking about how vulnerabilities, when you begin to actually heal, you know, you heal your pride, your ego, vulnerabilities become something that's not a weakness, it's a superpower. And that's huge. I mean, we're talking about the human beings behind the wolf pack here, behind Raised by Wolves, and we are all human. And they call it work because it never stops. The inner work, the self work, it's a continual thing. And so unfortunately you got to recognize that just as much as you got to have homies to reinforce your victories and be like, hey bro, I know you're like head down grinding right now and hard on yourself, but you've done a lot just as much as that. You got to kind of look at yourself and be like, all right, what do I still got to work on, you know? Because like you could take the bait, like I was talking about. My thing with fighting other people was I took the bait. Their spirit was angry, their spirit was hurt, their spirit was making fear-based decisions, and they baited me, and I took the bait based on my pride and my ego. And what I've learned, the whole mentality that I used to build people up before I met you guys and my own little wolf pack recovery was trying to teach people that, you know, wolves don't, little sayings like wolves don't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep. Or, you know, I'd say we are the wolves and they are everything else, meaning a wolf doesn't have to wolf out on a coyote, right? If this person is a threat, or if they're not a threat, then don't react. Don't give them your energy, because that's what that angry spirit wants. It wants to take from you, you know? I feel that. Because, I mean, I struggle with that internally. I just haven't lashed out.
You know, one of the things that we talked about, one of the previous episodes, was the role that's assigned. We get assigned this role, we find identity in it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And we talked about the ego and the pride, and we talked about those inner messages. And one of the things I really wanted to mention again is, I think one of the things you're talking about, as we recover and as we continue to get well, we move down this progressive path to wellness and really a whole healed life. It's really cool. There's still wounds along the way, right? And there's still wounds that we have. And the most vicious animal in the world, the most dangerous animal in the world, is a wounded animal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A wounded animal will strike without provocation.
Absolutely.
So if we're getting better, we're not using, we're not anesthetizing, we're not doing all the stuff that we used to do, and we don't address that wound, guess what? I will still strike at you
Totally.
because I'm wounded. And it doesn't really have to do with you. It has to do with me. You
Yeah.
represent an old wound. You trigger me, something.
Yeah.
And then I know, because I know you two, when we used to strike, it wasn't to hurt, it was to kill.
Yeah,
it wasn't to
absolutely.
maim.
Yeah.
It was to destroy. And
Absolutely.
trying to navigate that reaction, navigate those feelings, navigate that muscle memory that for me was decades old.
That's a big one, that muscle memory.
Right? Because you diss me,
huge.
you look at me strange, I get that feeling, boom, I'm on you because I'm wounded, because I went everybody else to not wound me again.
Yeah.
So I would push away people. I did it with drugs. I did it with alcohol. I did it with food. I did it with violence.
Yeah.
You know, and now I'm at a point to where wounds still present, old wounds still present, new wounds still present, to feel familiar to old wounds.
Yeah.
But what's different is me.
Totally.
So I get to react differently. I
Yeah.
get to process it differently. I get to find my identity in much different things than what you think about me.
Yeah.
And you know what you always hear what people think about you is none of your business. Well, that's true, but it's really hard to do,
It is.
right? Like I don't care what anybody thinks of me. That's not true. I care what my wife thinks about me.
Totally.
Care about what my kids think about me. Care about what my boss thinks about me when it's race time.
Yeah.
You know, there's
It's-
these things.
Do you think getting sober? Do you think getting sober and the emotions that come with being sober is kind of where you think more about that? You know what I mean? Where you, because I used to legitimately not think about who, except for my son. I used to not care about anybody else and what they
think you
thought
have more
about me.
clarity
But now
of
I
mind
think
to see
about
that.
when you just said that, I was like, yes, my wife, my stepkids, my relationships. I do care about what other people think about me sober.
Maybe because you're caring about more people.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
maybe that's it.
You got a lot of people that depend on you,
Yeah.
you know? And so I think the ego comes up because you have to exude so much confidence on a regular to tackle so many
Oh,
things.
Jesus.
And that's a gray area between confidence and ego.
Well, and
Driven
and there's
behavior.
a big difference between being proud and prideful.
Yeah.
I am
absolutely.
proud of almost 21 years of continuous sobriety. I am
Dude, I'm
proud
proud of
of
you for
25
that.
years of marriage.
Man.
I am proud that I
Yeah.
got 8 freaking kids and fostered and I'm proud of all that.
Yeah.
But I got to be careful because I can get prideful around
Yeah.
that. And it's not, the proud for me is, man, look at what has happened in my family and how beautiful it is, instead of look what I've done.
Totally.
And there's a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
And I also, you know, since we're talking recovery and we're talking about pride and ego and all that, I also don't adhere to the fact that I've done nothing for my sobriety. I work my ass off to stay
Totally.
clean, right? And sober. Because
Yeah.
now again, whatever, you know, 12-step, whatever, I was
We
in the
touched
rooms.
on that
yeah,
on the
so,
last episode.
you know, I'm clean and sober to me. Clean is not using. Sober is a state of mind and a lifestyle that I
Yeah.
live, and part of my
Mentality.
culture and my mentality is I'm of sober mind, right?
Yeah.
Would you think that there is? I already know the answer to this. Would you think that there's a lot of people out there that are clean? Let's say, do you think that most people are clean that would consider themselves sober? Most people are actually clean, but they're not necessarily sober.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I say that I've explained that, and I'm glad that we're touching on this.
And that's in
I
mindset
explained
terms.
that. I explained
Yeah.
that to a lot of people, and I have to explain it because I used to get it backwards because I used to tell people, like, oh, you're sober, but you're not clean, because that was something that I'd heard from Jimmy, and
Yeah.
I got it backwards. But can you explain, not to put you on the spot, this isn't necessarily an interview Jimmy episode, but you know what I mean? Would you explain, like, you know, to listeners or people watching this what that means?
Look, I can put down. I believe that when I used drugs and alcohol, food, sex, and violence, when I used it all, it was a manifestation of something else. I became alcoholic, but the first time I drank a beer, I wasn't alcoholic. I didn't go, oh my gosh, I can't live without this. The first time, to be honest, the first time I smoked crack, I wasn't a crackhead.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, oh my gosh.
I can relate to that.
This is crazy feeling.
I'm going to do this the rest of my life. I'll crack the code.
Yes. But it was because I was anesthetizing the feelings that were presenting either subconsciously, unconsciously, or consciously that made me feel not okay in my own skin.
Yeah.
So what made me feel better in my skin, even though if it made me feel worse when I sobered up or worse, I knew the outcome would be worse, I had control over screwing myself up. I have control over how my environment would be manipulated, not anybody else.
Yeah.
So when I quit using, guess what? I still hated everything about me. I still hated everyone around me. I didn't want
here.
anything to do with anybody. I
Same
wanted
here.
to kill everybody and kill myself. But because, you know, we talked about before, my mom suicided when I
Yeah.
was 19 and I found her. I couldn't do it,
Yeah.
right? You want to talk about
You knew what
misery.
that meant.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
the
The
weight
ripple
that it
effect
leaves
and
behind
yeah.
to those that don't go, man. You
Absolutely.
know, crazy. So there was 4-year stint where I wasn't drinking or using, but I was miserable, bro. I was depressed. I was suicidal. I was angry. I was just mean. And it wasn't until I said, you know what? I need to search inside myself more. I need to have somebody help show me what is there. Help, you know, basically practice what I was preaching, because I was also a therapist. I was, going to school to
Yeah.
become a clinically licensed marriage and family therapist, couple family therapist with a drug addiction background to help drug addiction specialties, and I wanted to kill people.
Totally. I
So
can
I
relate
went,
to that.
So I went and got help, right? I went and got therapy. And I'm still go get therapy, because guess what? I'm still screwed up because I'm
Yeah.
human. I don't get high anymore, and there's days I want to kill people, but I haven't woke up and gone, man, it sucks that I woke up
Yeah.
in a really long time.
And that's awesome.
I did that a lot when I was drinking. Towards the end, for sure.
Well, Jimmy takes on a lot. Like, I can get it. I've been a drug counselor, sobriety coach in an official capacity and unofficial, more longer unofficial capacity, just taking wolves under my wing. But like, the thing about that is you are absorbing a lot of people's pain, and you have to relive your own trauma that you went through every time you help them walk out of that place. And that's a lot. It's like, there's ancient teachings, there's biblical teachings that all talk about these prophets and these medicine men and these people. At some point, they had to go to the mountain, right? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
You have to go replenish your spirit. You have to go, your emotional diet gets shitty. And I don't care if you're doing, the best work on earth for people, it's going to weigh on your spirit.
Yeah, you can't
know?
transmit something you don't have. I can't
Totally.
give you something that I don't possess. I can
Yeah.
fake it for a while, but in the long run, it's going to come out. So if I'm not trying to heal the wounds, if I'm not trying to maintain my
Yeah.
sobriety, which, again, I will touch on, because
Yeah.
I will answer your question. If I'm just clean, that'll work for a little bit, but it won't work for the long haul, because
Absolutely.
I'm not addressing what it was causing me to drink and use, what was causing me to anesthetize.
Yeah.
And until that's addressed, other things happen. Sometimes, sometimes people get all weird about working out and they stop using, and all of a sudden they're
know a lot of
swole
people-
and running 50 miles a week like I used, doing all of that. But
Very
they still are
unhealthy.
addressing what is causing them to feel unease.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the word disease. It's dis-ease.
Yeah.
I'm at a dis-ease. And so because of the disease of being at a dis-ease, if I anesthetize, I feel a little bit better. I feel different, and I'm responsible for it, not you. And so even though I knew that it was incredibly damaging, I would still do it because I was responsible for the destruction, not anybody else. Sadly, that mindset carried over into my recovery journey
Yeah.
as well, right? I didn't want to be part of a wolf pack. I wanted to be the lone wolf, because I always was. I didn't trust anybody.
Yeah.
I still have a hard time trusting people. I mean,
feel that.
I could probably say that I got 4 or 5, and 2 of them are in the room, right?
Yeah.
So I still have to work. I can't coast. I can't just say, you know what, fuck it, I'm good. Because if I do that, I won't be good.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I just refuse to live that way. So I still work very disciplined spiritual practices. I still work very disciplined recovery practices. I keep my circle, my real circle, my inner circle, I keep really close and tight, because all of these people are doing the same thing that I'm doing, which is trying to better myself so I can help somebody else better themselves, with the expectation that they help somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's,
Definitely.
for me, the core of what recovery is, the core of what
Yeah.
sobriety is, the core of what the wolf pack is let's get well and show people that, man, sobriety can be kick-ass fun. It can be amazing. You can do amazing things. And when shit hits the fan, it's okay,
It's okay. Yeah.
because you can turn the fan off
Yeah.
instead of jump in front of it and go, why is there shit all over me?
That's funny.
You jump
Funny
in front
and
of the
true.
damn fan.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a wild ride, man, but I wouldn't change it for anything.
I
Yeah,
said the same thing in our last episode too. It's identity issues. You touched on that, and one of the things that I've shared the most with other people that help me the most, just intuitively, spiritually, internally, everything outwardly, is identify your triggers. Because we talked about AA and NA, and I'm just going to go there, right? It helps a lot of people, and I won't take away the power from that, because if you can work the program with discipline, it's good. But what I do know is that we are very powerful spiritual beings, and if we don't speak faith into ourselves, we're going to believe the bullshit that we're telling ourselves. And if you decide that this is a disease, I'm not accountable for it, you're not accountable. You're not going to take charge. And if things are just happening to you, you're just along for the ride and you have no control. And no matter how sober, clean you are, how many miles you run a day, you're still just addicted to a chemical rush, bro. Like, that's it, So, like, I always try to say, like, okay, well, let's go back. When did you first use? And we talked about that in the last one, like, started when I was a kid. And then that's my internal process, is look at that. Okay, well, this is what caused it here. let's trace that wound. Like Jimmy said, let's trace that wound all the way up into adulthood. And now I've identified a trigger, and now I can better prepare for that when I approach it.
You'd be surprised,
Yeah,
like
man.
even in my own story, you'd be surprised on how similar when you get together with people after you've gotten sober,
Yeah.
to where traumas are so similar with kids. Like when you're a kid,
Oh, yeah.
you might not start using till you're an adult. You might have dabbled when you were very young. I dabbled when I was very young with definitely alcohol, and when any drugs I actually ever had done, I was junior high, and but it's the trauma, man. Like that's crazy. I don't believe that the addiction is a disease. That's my personal opinion. I believe that it can be passed down. Maybe that does make it a disease, but I think that it's one of those diseases that is very treatable, obviously.
Yeah.
And the one thing that bothered me about AA, and again, if you work it, it's just like anything else, right? Like, you know, I mean, if what keeps you sober is you know, making sandwiches and giving them to homeless people, like, you know what I mean, keeps you sober.
Yeah.
If it's running up that hill, keeps you sober, whatever keeps you sober, I firmly believe that you should continue doing that because that's your purpose. But what I didn't like about it, and where I knew that it was going to be tough for me, even though Jimmy, and I get into a little bit of that later, like, you know what I mean, how Jimmy kind of, I think he kind of sneakingly took me through the steps, you know, because we would meet regularly.
Oh, it was sneaky.
Yeah, you have to.
We would,
didn't know.
You have to. Addiction is a spoiled child.
we would,
You gotta trick them.
we would, I know
tricky.
we're supposed to get into like my story and things like that, but
Yeah.
to kind of sidebar it and fast forward a little bit, my biggest issue that I had been going to, probably a dozen meetings, and it was raining one day. I remember the meeting. I don't even know. I remember it was a specific meeting when they had said that, like, you know, we're powerless over our addiction.
Yeah.
And that shit bothered me. I almost felt like it
That's
was
what
a
I'm talking
personal
about.
attack because
That's what
I
I'm
was
talking
like
about.
powerless. All I know is like when I go in the ring and if I was a fighter or hell in anything and I go and beat that person in the ring, I'm no longer powerless over that person.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Now, if they kicked my ass, that's one thing. If I lost the fight.
Yeah.
But to say that I'm powerless over something that I firmly believe I just beat,
Yeah.
like that's bullshit. Like,
They
you know what I
make
mean?
it a
And
god that you pray
it was
to.
very difficult for me to swallow that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
As
and-
it should be.
And to win the next fight, you still got to work out, right? You
Yeah.
still got to go to the gym. You still got to train. You
Exactly.
still got to do all that. So, and for me, I did come up in the rooms, you know, and I am incredibly grateful
Totally.
for Cocaine Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't get into NA, but, you know, it's great. NA was started because AA were being jackasses back in the day.
yeah.
Didn't want them to use the steps, and now they let them. But I don't still go to traditional 12-step meetings.
Yeah.
Part of that is because first line of the big book, we are 100 men and women who have recovered, right? To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of the book. So I kept hearing about a lot of recovering. 25 years, man, people were talking about it's still so hard and I'm still just trying to make it to midnight.
that ain't cool.
Dude, that's not sobriety.
That's a monster under your bed.
I want to go, you know, if I go to a meetings to celebrate a milestone of somebody who I love, if my life completely fell apart and I started drinking again and using drugs again, I would probably go to a meeting because I know that there's familiarity there and there's safety there. But what AA did for me and NA did, or CA did for me, is it stopped. It separated me from using and drinking for that time period. And I could go to a room where there was 20 to 150, some meetings with 300 people in Denver where those people weren't using, and that was a power greater than me because left to my own devices, I'm going to go get high. But what
Absolutely.
the traditional 12 steps didn't do was address serial molestation, serial abuse,
yeah.
suicidal ideation, bulimia, all the myriad of dysfunctions that I was experiencing, that I was using drugs and alcohol to anesthetize. It didn't address any of that.
Yeah, true to that.
And so at 4 years, I was close to killing myself. And at 4 years, and we shared about it in my podcast,
Yeah.
I had to go and change my path in recovery. Didn't start using any of that, but I changed the way that I recovered because I started finding strength. I am not powerless over cocaine
Yeah.
unless I put it in my body.
Yeah.
Then when I put it in my body, and I believe, and this is why I believe it's a disease, an allergic reaction happens. And I can't stop no matter what.
Yeah.
However great the thing is saying, hey, you should stop. You're going to lose your kids. You're going to lose your wife. I lost my kid
Yeah.
because of cocaine. I got her back, and I didn't want to lose her again, but I had to work really hard to not lose her.
I can feel that.
It is insidious. What is the big book says? It's cunning, baffling, and powerful.
Yeah.
And you know what else though? So is freaking recovery.
Yeah.
Recovery is cunning and baffling and powerful.
Yeah.
Man. Like,
Yeah, it is.
The fact that I haven't smoked crack in almost 21 years.
Absolutely.
I never
is
thought I'd be sober.
Crazy.
That's crazy. And I can only imagine how you feel, because when people ask me how long I've been sober and I say 3.5 years, there was no way in hell. There was so many times in my life where there was no way in hell I would dry out like for a month or two.
Yeah.
There was no way I even remotely thought I could live a life without drinking, because drinking was such a huge part of me, because it was socially accepted everywhere. You know what I mean? So drinking was, I never got into drugs, you know what I mean? And drugs was never my thing because of how I grew up with so much drugs around me from the time I was a little kid on. Like I never, I looked at those people, I looked down on those people. So I was like, I don't want to be those people. You could either join them and say like, oh, well, it's around me, I'll try this. And it turns into just your daily routine. Instead, like my brother and I would look at all of these people and that we were around, you know what I mean? And it was just, they were piece of shits to us. So, but then I drank, but then drinking was so cool for me.
Yeah.
Like, you know, working with musicians, you drink, you take shots. Hey man, like I'm buying the next round. You know what I mean? And then when I met you, I mean, you kind of hit that on the head, you know what I mean? Where you were like, you know, you're probably, you know, somewhat successful, you know, you're the guy that picks up the check. You're the one that holds court, like, you know what I mean? And you're the life of the party. And I'm just like, yeah. And
That
it
was all
like,
part of your identity that you felt you had to live up to.
well, yeah, because I think that I'm still not the segue just in like, you know, how I got sober, where I came from. But, you know, I think that I'm still very much that kid that's running from who he was when he was a kid. Because there's people that will watch this episode that don't even know. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I was, you know, my brother and I, you know, I can't tell my brother's story, but you know what I mean? But, you know, we were staying with a relative when we were younger, and like I was raped as a kid. And somehow like I felt like it was my fault.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
That's
I felt
common.
like, you know, you think
That's
it's your
very
fault.
common in victims
You know,
of that.
I was raped by like not a family member by blood, but a family
Yeah.
member. And then I was, you know, and it was pretty repeatedly happening. We leave the situation in Louisiana, we come back to California, and then end up, because of bad choices from my you know, my mom and my stepdad, and you know, I as much as I'd love to tell the world about them, I don't think either one of them really. Maybe that's me still trying to work on making peace with my mom. It's like
Yeah.
I've never cried. My mom passed away. I've never cried.
Yeah.
You know, it's because I felt like she, you know, you'd have to be a mom to be considered a mom, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know.
People that were supposed to protect you as a child.
Oh
that
yeah,
you
absolutely.
trusted in.
My dad
they
was
let you
a
down.
police officer, and he passed away when I was
Yeah.
8, almost 9. So I didn't really know him. Then my mom decides like, well, you know, married to a cop, I might as well go the complete opposite fucking direction and marry some dipshit that cooks meth in the kitchen. You know what I mean? So and then so it was his nephew that and sister that lived in Louisiana. His nephew's older though. His nephew's like in his 30s, and you know, he decides he's gonna rape me, and I think it's my fault. And it's crazy because at the
Because he
time,
probably made you think it was your fault.
yeah, yes and no.
Oftentimes,
I don't know.
people
I don't
who-
know if he
who
necessarily made it
Practice
made me think.
predation on kids. They make
Yeah,
them think it's their fault.
it was more of a like, you know, everybody does it kind of thing, whatever. And I'm like, what the hell? And
Yeah.
so,
Like everybody's
You know.
fucked up.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, it
they
is.
try to groom you. They try to normalize and rationalize it, and then
So-
they try to get you to not say anything, and that's why you think it's your fault. Because
Yeah. So we leave the situation. We get on our feet in Louisiana. We leave. We come back to California. We go back like the next summer to Louisiana, and it picks up like it never stopped. It was almost like, it's like when you ever had those girlfriends, like, or girls that you hang out with and you don't see them for years. As soon as you see them, it's like almost back in the day that, I don't know, maybe this is wrong for me to say, my wife killed me saying it. It was like those girls you kind of knew, like, all right, I'm gonna call this chick, and it's just gonna pick up right where we left off. We're gonna be drinking, we're gonna be whatever, and you know, it's kind of like that. It's almost that was expected, and I didn't think about it at the time until really I like came to terms with it and seen a therapist while I was still drinking. But like that's when my life changed big time, because I started immediately being very interested in cigarettes and weed almost immediately. Like it was like the older kids, you know, here I'm 11 years old when this happens, and immediately cigarettes were appealing to me. So I started smoking. Well, he
Coping
smoked cigarettes. The guy that raped me smoked cigarettes.
Yeah.
And so he would give me cigarettes. So then I just picked up on it.
Yeah.
And then, and not to go into the details, but this dude was like fucked up in a lot of ways. So he would like get off on giving kids cigarettes and shit, probably obviously because he's a fucking grooming kids. You know what I mean? And so he was
trying to
buying
make you feel
cigarettes.
grown up.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, and do this too. Yeah.
It's crazy
And then
because
you develop like Stockholm syndrome. You know,
Yeah.
you basically begin to kind of, even though like
Yeah.
it sucks, you have this like affinity towards
Oh,
the
yeah.
abuser.
yeah, it's crazy. And then, you know, cigarettes and weed, you know, obviously like at some point turned into drinking. And then drinking was amazing to me. Like from the first time first couple times I got drunk, I don't think I liked it. But I remember I was 13 years old and it was New Year's Eve. And I'm hanging out with the girl that I lose my virginity to that was 16. I lost my virginity to her when I was 13. And she was already drinking pretty actively. And she was like what you would call like trailer park trash, basically. And like she was like, you know, she was doing like meth already at 16. But I wasn't going to do that because like at home, I saw these shitheads coming around that did meth. So I'm like, we already call them tweakers and shit. And you know, it's like, nah. So, but I was drinking the first like year, I think the Bud Ice came out. Is there still Bud Ice?
I have no clue.
I don't even know.
I missed that.
Yeah, yeah. So
I missed all that.
Yeah,
I was 40s a King Cobra.
Yeah.
Straight to the handles of booze.
I was drinking.
Budweiser and Jim Beam, baby.
Yeah, I
That
was
it.
drinking. Yeah, and then
Blue
drinking was
Ribbon.
just so cool to me. Cool because everybody thought it was cool to drink. You know what I mean?
Dude, did you drink Zima?
Never.
So they
I was too young for that. I've seen the commercials though, man.
but they re-released Zima. So
Recent?
and it was garbage.
I can
no,
only-
no. Well, not recent. I've been sober for 3.5 years. But like, but maybe
No, I thought maybe you just seen it. I wasn't trying to put that-
maybe about 5 years ago, I'm at Walmart.
Yeah.
And they have the stacks of shit in the middle of the floor. They had a fucking pallet of Zima, and I was like, "You have to be kidding me!"
probably
And then
leftover.
my ex at the time, she's much younger than me, and so she didn't know what the hell I was talking about, and she's like, "Well, let's try them." So I remember putting some in there. I take them home, excited, like I was like a fucking crackhead, like it just picked up. You know what I mean? Well, I technically was because you know what I mean. And I was like, So I threw the yeah, right. Don't plug those guys. They
I know
come
they're
back.
gonna
They're
owe
like,
us some
even the
money.
sober guys talking about it.
We'll need 2 more chicken noises right there.
Yeah. So I put one in the freezer. I remember I pulled out a freezer. And it was like Sprite. Well, technically that's probably that if they
Now
re-release
it'd
them
be
now.
hard Sprite.
Yeah, it's a hard Sprite. You know what I mean? But yeah, I drank all that. I remember ditching parties were involved, everything, and you go there. The girls wanted Zima.
When did you know drinking was a problem for you? Like, what happened?
Fuck. So honestly, about a week before I called you. No. I might have known before that. So
I'm sure your conscience was barking at you, but you was just
it was.
sipping him quiet.
I was drinking. It was just a cool thing to do. I grew up in the hood, and I was a white kid that could fight in the hood for good reason because you guys both grew up in bad neighborhoods.
Totally.
You have very much a fight or flight mentality growing up in a bad neighborhood, being the white kid in the
Survival
neighborhood.
mode.
So it was like I didn't really chill with like any one group of folks, but I basically the neighborhood I grew up in was predominantly a Hispanic neighborhood. So it's like I was a teenager right around the time like Blood In, Blood Out, but Bound by Honor, Blood In, Blood Out came out, and so Miklo's obviously like the white character in that, and I'm like, so it was like I got
You identified with
everybody
that.
called me Miklo. Not that I was into gangs or anything, but
No.
I got into graffiti. I think graffiti actually kind of saved my life in a lot of ways because I could draw pretty well. My dad, when he was still alive when I was a little kid, drew. He was a police officer, but he drew. And so like I kind of started drawing as a little kid, and I got into drawing, and then I eventually got into graffiti, and I was pretty good tagger pretty early on, but I was drinking, tagging, fucking around. I was like the white kid that like jump off the wall. Like I just remember one instance, dude's like, hey, like some little fake crip in my neighborhood would like walked by, starts talking shit like, you shouldn't be, you're not supposed to be tagging in my neighborhood, fuck taggers. I'm like jumping
Yeah.
out the wall and clocking them, like, you know what I mean? It's like, this ain't your fucking neighborhood, like, you know, and
Yeah.
stupid shit.
Little
But
turf
so
wars.
over the years, I never
Looking
really
for
thought it was a
purpose.
problem. It was really when I moved to Vegas. I used to joke before I moved to Vegas
Yeah.
that I'd move to Vegas and I'd be a degenerate within 6 months, knowing that I didn't ever gamble. I still have never gambled before
Yeah,
in
me either,
Vegas.
bro.
Never have
I've
gambled.
never caught the
I've
gambling
I've
fever.
never put a quarter in a
Gambled
slot
with my
machine. Well, you don't
life.
even do quarters in slot machines no more. But I've never put $1 in a slot machine. I've never done any of that shit. Never bought a scratcher. Never did anything. And I come here and I knew I wasn't going to be on drugs because I didn't want to be on drugs. I had stopped smoking weed in high school. So the drinking thing. And then when I moved here, it was like moving here and being involved with the cannabis industry here, especially in the height of like the recreational, like the switch to the recreational market. Everybody was having parties all over the place because now cannabis was corporate. So there was corporate cannabis parties. So I was like hosting some at my house, and I was like involved with mansion parties and after parties. And like I was just saying, like, you know, on the way over here, like the dispensary I was involved with, like we'd host nights at Dre's nightclub. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was like we'd go there, it'd be open bar. I'd be buying bottle service. I'd be doing all this shit because it was like, you know, it was wild. And so there was times I had gained quite a bit of weight. Like when you met me, you know, I was like 300 pounds. You know what I mean? It's because I was drinking. I was in a crazy relationship that had stopped being, the physical part of the relationship wasn't there anymore, but the codependency and trauma, like you said,
Yeah,
it was
trauma
like
bonds.
trauma bonds
Disguised
is
as
that, like,
love.
she had and probably would still admit has issues that she needs to work on, and we both put band-aids on those issues with drinking. I mean, we'd buy 6 bottles of wine, and it would, like, I almost felt like it was a challenge because the wine bottles would all be empty next day, and I'd be wondering why I'd have a headache.
Yeah.
I'd be like, damn, my head is killing me. And then I knew that it really, really was a problem when, well, 2 main things kind of happened, kind of back to back. Is that one, I was living pretty much for like a week at the Park MGM. I had rented a suite there because, you know, I couldn't rent a regular room in case I had like wanted to host people and just hang out. I rent a suite. I'm looking out over to the T-Mobile.
Is that really
arena.
why you rented a suite?
Oh yeah, I know it was. But
It's that thing called ego.
yeah, ego, exactly. So
There's that guy again.
So
Little Joe.
I'm smoking a cigar downstairs by my. Yeah, exactly. I'm smoking a cigar downstairs. I'm drinking like an old fashioned. I go upstairs, lonely as hell because all my friends actually had jobs and responsibilities, and like not too many people on a Tuesday night was able to just go hang out at midnight at the Park MGM. So I'm at this place called like Old Friend or something like that, Asian restaurant there, right outside of it, like drinking. So I go up to the room. I'm looking over to the T-Mobile arena, and I remember thinking out the window, and not to sound all like crazy or like sad, but I looking over there. That year, I had made more money than I had ever made in my. I never even thought I'd make that much money in my whole life, and I made a lot of money that year. And it was already cold outside, so it had to have been probably August, no, maybe like closer to October, because I got, you know, I called you like in November, obviously. And I remember looking over, and I was like, this is not what I thought it was gonna be. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, I'm fucking miserable. Like, I know why CEOs is a very high suicide rate. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I know why rich people kill themselves. I know why. It was like an epiphany had happened.
Yeah.
I never understood that. I'm like, dude, you got all this fucking money. You can buy happiness. That's in my mind. That's what I thought. As I said, because I'm in a town right now where I can go right now anywhere I want, do whatever I want. I could call car service. Shit, I can rent a fucking helicopter if I want. Like, I could do whatever I want. I don't want to do shit. I want to be alone. I want to drink myself to a stupor. And and also it sound like little cliches that there's a Ben Affleck movie called The Way Back In.
Yeah.
And I saw the previews of that, the long extended previews. Like when you turn on your TV in a hotel room, they'll show previews on movies you can rent. I saw the long preview of that, and it was about, obviously I could tell it was a coach that had ruined his career drinking and that he was like trying to come back. And I got emotional during that stupid. I was almost going to rent the movie. I was like, I'm not going to fucking watch that. I'm going to end up crying by myself here in this room tonight. So I don't want to watch that.
Yeah.
And so shortly after that is obviously like the night that kind of ended all of this shit, is that I can't even blame my ex at all, who was very codependent on us. We were drinking together a lot. She actually told me earlier in the night not to drink this night, the last night I drank. She told me not to drink because, so I got comped VIP tickets to which is pretty regular, to a band that I'm really into, this band In Flames, and I know those guys, and it was all good. Went to the VIP thing earlier tonight. I'm drinking, and I told her that night, I said, I'm not going to drink past the VIP meet and greet. That's it. But then the waitress comes over and says, oh, you've got a $300 and something spend. And I go, really? Like, you know what I mean? So that's like going to a crack house and the crack dealer is like, hey, bro, by the way, you got $300 credit. You're going to get fucked that night if you're a crackhead. So I'm with Dirty D, a buddy of mine, with a whole group of people. And I'm just taking doubles back the whole night. Like, and I'd even at one point in the middle of songs, like the singer of the band literally points at me because I'm making all this noise, doing this crazy shit in the VIP, points at me and points at the fucking waitress, gets her attention, was like, he was cutting me off. He was like, because I was like fucking screaming, I'm fucking throwing shit, like, and you know, and I'm like almost 40 years old when this is happening. Or no, I'm over 40 at that point. Like, I'm just like acting like a fucking child. And so that night, I had even at one point when they cut me off, I had like my buddy ordering me drinks in the table next to me. I was just like, hey, order me a double. So we leave there. I go to get in the valet. I mean, you know this story. I go to get in the valet. My ex was like fucking pissed. And at this point, I still don't remember where she was at this point. You know what I mean? Like, and so I go to get in the valet, and the valet was like, bro, I'm not giving you your keys.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's my fucking car. You're going to give me my keys. And then he was like, dude, you need to fucking chill. And so I fucking pushed him. And I was like, you're going to give me my fucking keys because it's my car.
Yeah, you're tripping doing that.
And he's like, I'll call. And then I'm like, I'm going to call the cops. And he's like, yeah, call the fucking cops. You're going to go to jail. And so I said, fuck you. So then somehow my ex, she's not here with me at this point, but somehow my ex gets the car and drives it away. Obviously, they end up talking. And he's like, she drives the car home. I don't even remember shit after that until the next morning at all. Swear to God, hand to God, I don't remember anything. I end up getting somehow to Top Golf, which is only about 2 blocks away, but it's 2 blocks away in a shitty neighborhood too. Like, you have to walk through a shit neighborhood where you could get hit by a car or fucking someone killed you. So I walked to Top Golf, somehow I wake up the next day in the guest room, which was pretty normal at this point at my house, like waking up in the guest room because of a fight or whatever. I wake up, it says, do you want to tip your Uber driver? I'm like, where the fuck when the hell did I drive an Uber? Where was I in an Uber at? So I go and I see where the trip, it shows you where the trip is. And I go, it says Top Golf. So Top Golf's next to MGM. So maybe I got an Uber at MGM. My car's probably still at MGM. I literally opened the blinds. My car's in the driveway. What the fuck? How did I get here? Like, you know what I mean? What's going on? I go into my account and it says, I have like 4 small charges at Top Golf. And then I have a $345 charge and like an $18 charge or something like that. I'm like, what in the hell? I didn't even go to Top Golf last night. So after, you know, after I fight a hangover, I go to Top Golf and I walk in there and I walk upstairs and I go, I think I was here last night, but if not, someone used my card. And maybe, like, I don't know, I'm really confused at this point. I'm like sweating, I'm fucking hungover. And then I remember some girl walking up to me that was working the night before, and she said, oh my God, thank God you're okay. We just guessed that was your house that we were sending you to because you could not be here. Like, my manager's going to call the cops on you. Like, it was bad because you were drunk, you were buying people rounds, like this and that. So we got you an Uber and sent you home. So I don't remember going in the house. So then I said, shit. So I had my store out here. I drive to the store. There was a guy that that had given me Jimmy's number before, that because he used to work with us. He was like, he did marketing and stuff for us, and he had given me the number. So I had Jimmy in my phone under Jimmy AA. Yeah. And so I called and left him a voicemail on his personal and confidential voicemail, Jimmy Monahan. And so
I have a couple of those.
And so I had
you gotta save him.
Yeah, I sent him a voicemail, and I said, like, hey, you know, I think I might have a drinking problem, this and that. So he called me back. I'm sweating. I go in. I had a massage chair in the fucking lobby of my store, and so I go in there. I'm sitting in the massage chair, and he calls me back, And then he says, like, I said, I think I have a drinking problem. He's like, well, I'm the expert. I'm the expert in this field. You should let me determine if you have a drinking problem or not. And then and so I was like, great. So then I went over there that day. And the crazy thing about it is I almost drank that night after I'd visited you. About 4 hours with Jimmy, I'm over there. I'm like, I go in there, it's light
This
outside.
man gave you 4 hours of his time.
Yeah.
Total stranger.
Yeah. I was like
That's
crying in
beautiful.
his office. Like I was like stupid. I still remember like staring off at some notes he had written on the board to like change the thought so I wasn't getting upset. I
Yeah.
was like reading shit on the board, and I remember leaving there and I went to Lazy Dog, which is a pretty normal occurrence for me. I still go to Lazy Dog all the time when I'm out here. Went to Lazy Dog, I walk up, the bartender walks over and he has a beer. He has a beer and a shot and he comes walking over. I go, no, I'm not drinking. He goes, no, neither. And I was like, no, dude, I'm gonna quit drinking. He's like, for how long? And I was like, well, obviously not tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. And so like he's already got a beer and a shot poured for me. So I walk away, and I don't remember. I remember I ordered like a coffee or something, iced coffee or something like that. I don't know. I guess I took the scenic route to answering that question. I thought for sure right around the time I stopped drinking that it was actual problem. Before that, I just thought it was very controlled. Like,
Well, I mean, it's like the scenic route, but nonetheless, it helps us understand the person behind Raised by Wolves. Nonetheless, what led you there? Like, I think we've all probably felt that when we got into our recovery. Is this another phase? Like, I had my shooting heroin phase that lasted a long time. Before that, my pill phase, my ecstasy phase, my taking ecstasy pills and going to do donuts in my car and driving recklessly phase. Now I'm mixing my heroin and crystal meth shots with vodka phase. So then everybody in my life too, and me, is doubting my recovery. Like, okay, you're sober. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Is this another phase? So, I mean, that you probably dealt with that. I dealt with that. That's huge.
yeah, it's crazy because Jimmy told me to go to 90 meetings in 90 days.
Did you
And,
do it?
No, I did go to 90 meetings, but I
Skipped a couple days.
yeah, I
You took the scenic route.
some of them were for good reason. So here was my problem with that. It wasn't because I don't think that people shouldn't do 90 meetings 90 days, because I'm actually a big advocate of that. But I knew after meeting with Jimmy that I wasn't going to drink again. Now, I probably would have been white knuckling it, as you, I think, had called it.
Yeah.
I probably would have been white knuckling if I hadn't went and gone and like seen people suffering. But I went to the Sahara Club, which I think everybody should at least go to one meeting if they're still having that Sahara Club, because
It'd be
it's
interesting to go out
it's
here.
it's a bad,
Vegas.
it's a very bad neighborhood. Like there's more drunk people in that meeting than there are sober people in this meeting.
I've
probably.
encountered that at NA too.
And so
People
the
don't
lady,
get hooked
I
up.
saw a lady get out of a pretty nice car, a little black car. I pulled in. I was a little early. I got there early because I know where the hell I was going. So I get there and like I see a couple people outside, like every meeting, smoking cigarettes
Yeah.
before the meeting and stuff. And I get out and I see this lady. She puts her purse over her shoulders, walks in. She's kind of little stocky girl, lady I should say. She's probably 60 years old. I don't remember her name. And then she sat down next to me, asked me if what meetings I normally go to. I was like, this is my first AA meeting. And funny thing is, it wasn't my first AA meeting because what a lot of people don't even know about me is that my college career started with me going to school to be a drug and alcohol counselor with Concord Career Institute. And I actually finished the
Was
program.
that before the optometry?
That's what led me into optometry, is because I fucked up when I started that.
Yeah.
I was already making like 60 grand a year working for Vans, and I went into drug and alcohol counseling thinking that I had no problem with drinking, but I wanted to help people get sober because I grew up around drug addicts.
Mm-hmm.
So I was volunteering, doing hours at taking money taking money from people that had to pay to go to AA and NA. I was at AA and NA meetings at this facility. I was interning there in school, like taking money because people would come there, and I would even talk with people outside because I was still like smoking back then.
Yeah.
And tell people it was bullshit. People would be like, I'm just doing this because of court. I'd be like, yeah, fuck this shit, man. Like, and I'm in school for this. Like, you know what I mean? And I was like, you don't have so does it sound like you have a problem? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, so, but yeah, it was great. But I ended up, what happened is that I was making more money at Vans, and then some lady, I saw that she worked for a recovery center. She came in the Vans, and I said, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be leaving here. I'm going to go into recovery. She said, she's all, do you make good money here? I said, yeah, I make 60 grand a year. She's like, oh, she's like, you must really have a passion for helping people because you're going to make about $13 an hour as a recovery counselor. I said, what the fuck? So I immediately went to college, and I said, I gotta parlay these credits into something else. There's no way I could go into this field. So then I went into pre-med and then eventually optometry.
Yeah.
So it's like,
awesome.
Yeah, man. I was like, what the hell? So I basically had enough units at that point if I was to transfer them over to a junior college JC that I could I was almost done with my associates at that point, my 2-year degree.
That was a fork in the road, I think, even back then. Like, I've noticed those when we look back and we reflect on all the things in our timeline. I had many instances where I believe for me it's God, for other people it's the universe, whatever you want to call it. Karma would pop up and try to lead you down a path that was going to eventually help you, and it creates a different timeline. You chose a different timeline.
Yeah.
At the time, money was more important than the medicine involved in that, There was times for me where somebody would come into my life that could have led me in a positive direction. Or like there was a time where I went up to my mom's. She was the very first person that I told that I had a problem. I told her straight up, like I went to go see her in Canada because I was messing up and I just got done touring with an artist that was really toxic. And I told her, I said, Mom, I've been using a lot of opiates. She's like, yeah, I know you were taking pills. I'm like, no, Mama. I showed her. And she cried and she held me. But you know what? I kicked at her house and I made it for 2 weeks. I mean, my mom, bless her heart, was fighting cancer, and I couldn't sleep all night. She'd run me a hot bath at 4 a.m. and another one at 6 a.m. She'd sit on the couch and watch old movies with me while I'm just kicking back and forth, rubbing my calves. Her hands hurt from getting needles in them for doing her IVs and getting her treatments and stuff. And she did that for me. And then you know what? That toxic dude that I had been touring with, his mama lived in Canada nearby. And it was that moment, that fork in the road. He hit me up, hey bro, I got a gig for us, bring some cash with you when you come out. I pull up, he's got 100 and something Oxycontins. And that 2 weeks of love that my mom poured into me, right, to try to get me to go to that different direction. I didn't choose the good medicine. I didn't choose the good intentions. I chose the other route. Yeah. We all have those forks in the road. And it's funny to think about, like, holy shit, even way back then, before all of these other horrible cataclysms, I had an out. For me, it was, God gave me an out. I didn't take it.
That is weird because the irony in this whole situation is I'm planning, and I've talked to you, I think, about this. When I step down as the CEO of the company that I run right now and focus 100% of my energy on recovery, 100% of it, I do plan to go back to school and get a certificate, and I probably will make no money with that actual degree. Yeah, I'll probably make no money because we're already doing things where like, well, it'll just be because I need I need a refresher and to actually pay attention to the education at that program. So years ago, I turned it down because I wasn't making enough money, and I'll probably not even make $1 an hour with all the help that I'm going to be using now, because now I actually want to do this. This is something I want to do. Not I was just going into a career because I thought I'd help a couple of people, not end up like my mom,
All the steps after taking that previous fork in the road, though, led you down all this messed up shit that caused these cataclysms that put you in this place to where now, full circle, you care about that. It's the same thing with me.
It is crazy how
full circle,
works,
I care about the things that I used to not care about because I suffered. Now, if I had stayed clean with my mama, I don't know if we'd be sitting here right now. Right. Because I had almost 8 more years of fucking up to do.
Yeah, I bounced in and out of the rooms for 11. Yeah. So at 20, I lived at the Animal House fraternity. I mean, it was crazy.
I bet.
Them dudes sat me down and said, bro, you got a drinking problem.
Them dudes
like,
did.
you guys are weak. You got a problem.
That is the weirdest situation.
It was so surreal. I'm like,
that's funny.
We had a dude there named Otis, and his nickname was Otis from the drunk from Andy Griffith.
Okay.
Right. I mean, we had the Jim Beam Award. Like, whoever drank the most Jim Beam would get the award for the year. And, and these dudes are telling me, I got a problem. I'm like, fuck you, man. You guys got a problem. You just can't handle your liquor, right? So it's crazy. I want to get to a fork in the road.
Yeah.
No one could ever tell me if I had a problem or not. So the reason I told Joe, well, I'm the expert, come in, is because I wanted to get Joe into the room.
Totally.
So I don't think I can tell. I can say you match all the check boxes in the DSM-5, text revision, and this will make you qualify to have substance use disorder, mild, moderate, severe, whatever. Yeah. But it wasn't until I went, shit, man, I got a problem. Like, for real.
You can look
not just I smoked too much crack. I remember thinking when they had my daughter, it's like, I'm gonna get my daughter back and I'm gonna smoke crack like a normal person.
Totally.
Hey, yo, wait a minute. Normal people don't smoke crack, yo.
Dude, but that's real.
But that's what my head was saying.
I
right?
relate to that.
So it wasn't until, and we shared about it, and I had a moment of clarity.
Yeah.
And I went, damn, maybe I can. And the thought that installation of hope, and research says that hope is responsible for 80% of change.
Yes, it is.
If we can instill hope, you got an 80% chance. And that's one of the things that I love about this movement and what we're doing as the wolf pack and Raised by Wolves. Hope comes in so many different ways, in so many different modalities. So when I first started getting clean and sober, I was 12-step freak.
Yeah.
If you took a Wellbutrin for your depression, you weren't clean.
Yeah.
Because you were using a mind-altering substance.
I've met guys like that in the recovery
And I was like that.
community.
And you know what? And that worked for me for a while.
Yeah.
But now I know that there's so many different pathways that, you know what? I'd rather you smoke some weed than smoke heroin. I'd rather
Absolutely.
you smoke some weed than shoot dope. Now, do I want you to smoke weed to the point to where you're anesthetized and you're not dealing with what you need to deal with? No. But if you're super dope sick because you're kicking heroin and you drink some kava
Yeah.
and smoke a blunt and your kick is easier and you don't use again,
Yeah.
dude, right on.
Yeah.
That's great. Harm reduction, man. And I think that in this day and age, it's so hard for a lot of the traditional recovery people to understand that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't use kratom. I drank kava for a while. It really helped. And one of the crazy things with kava is that it has a numbing effect to it. So I don't know if you remember, we were at Ninth Island.
I remember.
And
I remember.
I drank it and I looked at Joe and I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you didn't tell me. He's like, oh, I should have told you that it numbs your
numbs,
mouth.
yeah.
But the physiological effect that I had for the calming of my body, it was tremendous. And I had
That could benefit a lot.
What, like 17 years sober at that point? You know, it's crazy. Just, I have a really hard time sleeping because I have the committee. The second my eyes open, the committee goes.
Yeah.
Well, there's some alternative stuff out there that helps me sleep that's not Seroquel. No,
Yeah.
if you're on Seroquel,
Hey,
that's great.
psychotropics are,
You know,
they're rough.
that's the real deal. I've been on psychotropics for a long time.
Yeah.
I've also done amino acid regimes. I've done all kinds of different things to be able to get
Yeah,
to a
you
place.
got me on the amino acids.
Yeah, they're
Been steady.
amazing.
Yeah.
They're amazing. And the reason why our brains need chemical balance is because they're off balance chemically, right?
Totally.
So again, I think that there's one of the things that's really cool about your story is you came in this place of desperation and brokenness. I helped reword, I believe. I don't believe that any of us are broken because that would suggest that we need fixing. I believe all of us are wounded.
Yeah.
That would suggest that we need healing.
Yeah, the wound is real.
And it was crazy because you were talking earlier and I was thinking about this analogy, triggers. We all have scars and the toughest skin on the body is a scar. The weakest skin on the body is the skin around the scar.
Yeah.
So that's the trigger.
Totally.
I can be like, yeah, I'm tough. I did this. I survived all this. I'm a survivor, got Trump. But if you touch the skin around the scar, I'm going to flinch.
Yeah, totally.
So I have to be conscious of the triggers around that.
Yeah.
For me, in the beginning, one of those triggers was alternative pathways to recovery. And I believe I would get so mad. I'd hear about somebody using weed is the greatest example. You know,
Yeah.
I got sober in Colorado and the green rush and all of that, and people were smoking weed to go to sleep, and people were smoking weed instead of shooting dope. And I'm like, you guys are still drug addicts,
Yeah, yeah.
but their quality of life was so much better than
Quality
it
of
was before.
life, you know?
And so, who am I to sit and judge? You know, I come from a background and a foundation that says, don't judge,
Totally.
love, and
Yeah.
we can get to that place where it doesn't. I love you for you,
Yeah.
and I'm loving you because I believe I'm duty bound to that.
Yeah.
And I believe that I'm duty bound to helping people get well. I mean, I do this because my life depends on it.
Yeah.
There's a life source that I get out of helping people get well.
Totally.
That's undeniable. And so I just wanted to address what Joe said. Jimmy said, you got to come over and let me decide because I'm the professional. I did say that. Absolutely, I said that. But the only reason I said that is because I heard the desperation. I heard the lack of hope. I heard the wounded person on that other side of that phone. And I wanted to meet him.
You saw the value in that.
I
I think
didn't.
I've talked about before. The gift of desperation is a powerful
Yeah.
place. When you get to that place, you can later use that, and it's definitely a superpower, big time. You know.
I didn't want to open up to anybody really. I
Yeah.
honestly thought that I would go
Most
over there.
folks don't.
I felt like I would go over there, get somebody that was a professional. I, I remember distinctively the whole conversation I had with multiple people before I went to meet Jimmy that day. I just want to hear it from a professional that I'm an alcoholic, because in my mind I think I'm fine. I think I can control it. I think I can be good.
What I told you?
Well, it depends. Like what you told me a lot of.
Well, I
shit,
told you a lot of
but,
stuff, but I did say, you're probably an alcoholic.
Yeah.
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 Well, I went to my first meeting. I was going to tell you that night where I knew that this shit was crazy, and that alcohol was because I never really thought alcohol was that big of a problem to the average person. As the lady walked in the nice car, I didn't get to the rest of the story. Sat next to me that night. She was sharing. She said she got a newcomer chip, but she had just told me, or one day chip. She had just told me she'd been coming to meetings for like 11 years. So I'm like, interesting. And then she shares. She got the chip. They said, "You want to share?" And she said, "I just drank hand sanitizer in the parking lot."
I've heard that before. I've heard,
I was like,
I've heard someone in a meeting
holy-
talk about
I
they were
never
drinking
met
hand
anybody do
sanitizer.
that. She had a nice car. To this day, I never actually. I didn't have the balls to ask her why you just drove up in a pretty decent car. It was like a Mercedes or something. It was like a Lexus
You
or a
never
Mercedes.
know what led him
I'm
there.
like, what did you do? Now, maybe she at the time she just didn't have booze on her, or maybe her husband took her card. She couldn't buy it. There's hand sanitizer in the car. I don't know.
Maybe she got nervous and wanted to leave the meeting and looked over and saw alcohol percentage and said, "I got to get this boost of courage to go into this meeting."
Well,
That's crazy.
and I think that her truth is that the pain was so strong.
Yeah,
She went to a familiar
yeah,
solution
it was there.
that would change the way that she felt, even though she knows that it's going to be worse. Yeah. She was responsible for the worseness, right?
Yeah.
It's a power and control thing. I think a lot of drug addiction and alcoholism comes from the lack of control, the lack of ability to have our environments in a healthy place. So what we're going to do, if it's going to be shitty, you know what? I'm going to be responsible for that. I don't know how much conscious thought goes into that, but I guarantee that the subconscious and the unconscious plays into that.
Oh yeah, they have agreements, they have conversations. I think a lot of it is your emotional, spiritual, and psychological toolkit, and those can be built, those can be sharpened. They can also dull up if you're not exercising them. You know, like when you go back to like childhood trauma, no, it's often somebody drops some stuff on you, for instance, that you didn't have the emotional, psychological, spiritual toolkit to quantify. What? Like nobody prepares you for a situation like that. And you know, I said you build walls, and those walls will grow teeth. After a while, you can go so long, and this is protecting me, but eventually this thing is going to start hurting you and other people around you. And like the difference between a recovery identity and the identity prior, or the difference between, in my opinion, an identity of a victim versus the identity of a survivor. When you become a survivor and you embody that and you imbue that and you take authority in that presence, you decided that you are Jimmy, right?
Yeah.
Jimmy, now today. That's an identity that you created, that you earned, that you built,
Well, and
right? Not something that was put on you by what you experienced.
No. I have to.
Not as a reaction.
I have to still put that identity on a daily
too.
basis, because I believe that I got brain damage.
Yeah.
If anybody talked to me the way that I talk to myself, I'd kick their ass.
Oh,
Right.
If anybody
dude.
treated me the way I treat myself, I try to kill them. And so I have to be very self-cognizant of my inner dialogue. I've got to be very self-cognizant of, am I hungry, angry, lonely, tired? Am I in this place that I'm unstable? Because if I am, I'm probably going to hurt somebody.
Totally.
And not physically. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But I say some mean shit to people I love.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
And it's crazy. And it's usually when I feel like the situation is out of control or something's going on. I got 8 freaking kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
They're all trauma-based. Well, 4 of them are trauma-based kids.
Yeah.
They're squirreling out, and I yell, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
They're all re-traumatized. They're all
It's reactionary
Yeah.
because that's also like your emotional diet. We talked about, you know, keeping the right people around you. It doesn't, all that shit goes out the window when you got kids, right? You took these kids on. You knew what they had going on, and you took them on. And it doesn't matter if you're the adult and they're the children. I've experienced this around my nieces and nephews, you know, badass kids, you know, they're acting this way. They're yelling across the house. They're communicating in these ways that we have worked not to. And before you know it, you're yelling across the house, right?
Yeah.
Because you're around that. It's drilling into your subconscious every single day, and you have to set those intentions. But I think it
Yeah.
starts with the dialogue with yourself.
Well, and the beautiful part of it that I think that comes from the recovery mentality, comes from
Yeah.
the recovery sober lifestyle,
Yeah.
is I'm able to catch it. And when
good.
I catch it sooner, so you can't unring a bell, right?
Totally.
And you're a musician, so cymbal crash. You hit the cymbal and it stops. So
Yeah.
instead of hitting the top of the bell of the cymbal and listening through the ring, like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
when's it going to stop ringing?
Yeah.
I can stop it. I still ring the bell at times,
Because you've sharpened those tools.
but I can stop it whenever I
Yeah.
want and work on not ringing the bell again. And how I do that is by staying around dudes like you, staying plugged into the wolf pack, staying plugged into what we're doing.
Yeah.
To let
Plugged
people
into
know
your
that
spiritual
recovery
belief
is
system.
absolutely
Yeah.
letting people know that recovery is possible, that the way that we live is available for anyone at no
is.
cost.
Totally.
Well, there is a cost. The cost is annihilation of what you used to know, annihilation of the dead self, and becoming
Yeah.
this new creature in the new
The
life.
sacrifice that takes.
Yeah, the new life that I get to live on a everyday basis is tremendous. I'm grateful. Instead of waking up and going, oh shit, I really wish I wouldn't be awake right now.
Totally.
I wake up and I go, huh, wonder what's going to happen today.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. What's on the
Jesus
menu
Christ.
today?
I say that every day. I go, what is the world going to throw at me this time?
That's why you got to watch too, you know, who you keep around you and what your emotional diet is. Because if I'm around complacent people, I get complacent and cranky, and I'm like, wait a minute, no. I'm the dude who has had his life saved multiple times. I am so bursting with life and gratitude, I could just weep at any moment. And that's coming from a dude who couldn't even force a tear when some of my best friends died prior,
Yeah.
you know? But you come to a place to where gratitude is a powerful sword, and I've learned that. Like literally praising when you're going through it, when you're in the middle of
Yeah.
a storm, being like, man, thank you for this life. I'm so grateful right now.
Yeah,
like
man.
even when you're pissed.
I woke up today in my bed
Totally.
next to my wife and the 5-year-old who climbed in, right? In my house, not incarcerated,
Yeah.
not in the dirt.
Not in the dirt.
And my feet haven't even hit the floor yet.
Yeah.
What an incredible day for a dude like me.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
I used to hate that was my, that's how I would wake up. And now, what do you got for me? What am I
Yeah.
going to do? What can I
Yeah.
put into the stream of life instead of take out of the stream of
That's
life?
huge.
What can I contribute to this thing that we call the earth, the community, our whatever,
Yeah.
instead of what can I get from it? I have gone from a scarcity, must hoard mentality because,
Survival
on-
mode.
to what can I give?
Yeah.
And with nothing in return. It's that altruistic movement. I want to help, not because I want something from you. I want to help because I want you to live a life that I've experienced that
Yeah.
is so incredibly full of love and joy and
Yeah.
also pain and struggle. And one of the things I've really admired about Joe is I watched Joe come in pretty messy. I've watched Joe get sober, and there's still been some real messy shit that has happened in his life and has gone on around him. And on the outside, for people who I know Joe pretty well,
Yeah.
I would say I know Joe pretty well. And on the outside, if you don't know Joe pretty well, Joe lives a pretty dope life,
Yeah.
right? On the outside, it looks his little electric car that he's now part of the club.
Fuck that
The
club.
charging station club.
You missed the last episode.
Yeah, I got a video.
Oh yeah.
But I appreciate that, and I love to watch how Joe lives life.
Yeah.
I also know that yesterday there was struggle. The day before
Yeah.
that there was struggle. I know that tomorrow
There's
in
gonna be
Joe's life
struggle.
there's going to be struggle. But I don't go, oh no, Joe.
No.
I go, man, go,
Yeah.
Joe. You got it, man. This is it. I'll text
appreciate
him
that.
now. I'll just put yo, and he'll put I'm okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, because he'd be like, man, I'm super busy. All I'm doing is checking in on you, bro.
I just mentioned at the end. I didn't mention necessarily about you, but we were saying something today, and I said, because I showed you I had 70 text messages
Yeah.
on my phone, and I go, and you were like, I get it, bro. I said, no, but I feel bad because people do text me because they generally are like, hey, how you doing, and they mean it. But I get so tied up to where it's so buried in the messages, I don't always get back to it right away. Or when I get back to it, now I'm like I take conference calls like sometimes in the shower because I
Yeah.
can put it on mute and just put the phone up in there because I got to fill my day. I still have to work out. I still have to spend time with my wife. I still have to do things that that make my life balanced. But
Yeah.
I appreciate you saying my life is pretty dope life. I do live in a beautiful house. Like I how can I even say this without sounding like I have major imposter syndrome? I don't necessarily care about all the monetary shit that I have at all. I really don't give a shit about this new car. Like, not to keep bringing this car up, but when I told my wife the other day, the other day I'm in the bank because my bank accounts get frozen pretty regularly because of being in the cannabis industry.
Yeah.
I'm in the bank and I put, money in the bank or whatever in this new account that I just had to open. And I told my wife, and I kind of low key mean this because I was starting to go this direction. Then I met my wife, and she deserves nicer things in life. She's been through shit. And I told her, I said, it's crazy. Like, I was kind of low key joking, but kind of serious. I said, I just want a Toyota Camry, a nice TV, decent living room, and like a decent bed in an apartment. And like that, I fantasize about the shit that other people are trying to work themselves out of, because I don't care about that shit anymore. I when I say that, people say that because they're trying to appear humble because they can't afford it.
Yeah.
I may mean that because attached to all the bullshit that everybody thinks is cool in my life is a lot of shit that is like, it's not even trying to keep up with an image, because I don't give a shit about my image. Like, other than like with my friends and things, it's a lot of fucking responsibility. Now, to where if there wasn't a means to an end to this, which and I think because there is a date where this responsibility is going to shift more into a different, I have some hard dates on this. I would literally be actively trying to remove myself out of the shit that I deal with every day. Like, because like I'm just done with it. I could handle it better when I drink, for sure, because I'd laugh people off and I'd be like, whatever, get done when it gets done. If I don't do it, someone else do it. Yeah. Even though I still ran the company very well. So it's like, I appreciate that I have people rooting for me, and I have cheerleaders. My wife is my biggest cheerleader. You know what I mean? I told her very early on that like you will live a pretty comfortable life with me, but you're going to need to be patient, because like my time is all over the place. I don't go to a 9 to 5 every day. I don't know when I'm home some days. I don't know when I'm leaving in the morning. I could get a phone call that could seriously be an important phone call at 11 o'clock at night where I need to drop everything I'm doing or get out of bed and take care of it, because I run, as crazy as it sounds, I run a multi-million-dollar company that now is publicly traded. And it's like, just those words make me nervous. It's not getting any easier saying that shit.
But that feeds the ego part, that feeds all these other things, I was going to say, your system of value has changed just in our conversations. All of us, we've talked about this. This is kind of like a reoccurring theme, and I think it's a really important theme to touch on, is when your system of value changes, suddenly you see value in things you didn't before. And suddenly the things that seem like they were everything don't matter. Like, for instance, me getting locked up in the middle of so much shit going on. My ex-wife in a stolen van that we lived in, and now she's out there and I'm in here and I can't protect her. And all these things that I just couldn't let go, guess what? They don't matter anymore, bro, because the cataclysm hit me. And I talk about that when I try to help other people get sober. I'm like, you can either be the cataclysm or you can get hit by it. But it's going to take a complete cataclysmic event to switch this all up and change your system of value to where you get up and it's like, were you married to your wife when you were using?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so your system of value changed, right? And then your relationship changed because now you see the value in those things that we once took for granted.
Yeah.
It's insane the way that works.
The biggest thing I would say that I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that had to shift for me, that I see value in, that I started finding worth in, was me.
Absolutely. Those conversations with yourself, like you said, you talk to yourself like real dirty sometimes, and I did too. And I've been intentionally working on that, because we can have those conversations and have covenant with ourselves.
And the duty bound piece of, I have to help people.
Yeah.
I just have to.
That mission.
It's duty bound. It's part of how I believe I'm wired.
Yeah.
I also, people ask often, why do I do what I do? I do what I do because I don't want anyone to ever feel like I felt.
Yeah.
Fuck. Deep.
That's why I do what I do.
Deep. Absolutely.
Because if somebody has felt like I felt, oh my God, that's ugly. And that's dark. And I don't want, if I can arrest that, or I can help there be brevity in that, then that's what I want.
Totally.
And I believe I've been pretty good at helping people see the value and worth that they have in themselves.
Yeah.
And the really cool piece about this is I believe that my kids have such a better chance at living life in a way that produces fruit earlier than I ever did, because there's nobody beating them up.
Totally.
There's nobody starving them. They have a house with a roof that they've lived in their whole life. They aren't being told what garbage they are. They're not being told that they're going to end up in the penitentiary or dead. They're being told they're loved, that they have a value and a worth, that they can do whatever they want, that they can be whoever they want, that they don't have to be in this box of bullshit that I was put in for so long. And I believe that when we do that, when people get well, we can break that transgenerational cycle of dysfunction.
Yeah.
Because I used to share this, and I think I shared this in my podcast. I used to share this. I used to say, man, I'm so grateful that my kids broke the cycle of dysfunction in my family. My kids didn't break it. I did.
You did.
My wife did.
But they are living that.
They're living it, and they can continue the progress down to a completely different lifestyle than any of us had. And that's the beauty of it. And it's not just my kids. I believe, here's why I believe the 12 steps are good for everybody. The 12 steps help people live a life that is full of integrity, honesty, and truth.
Absolutely.
Right? And grace.
The steps are great.
So
There's
anybody
no denying that.
anybody who I come in contact with, anybody who I collide with, it's a beautiful collision instead of this cataclysmic, to use your this horrible cataclysmic collision where everybody gets hurt.
It's not always bad. It can be bad if you don't set the intention and be the cataclysm is just that break.
Right,
cycle,
the explosion,
you know?
the piece.
But it's not always bad.
But it doesn't. And thank you. I was trying not to refer to all being negative.
Totally.
And when I run into somebody on the street, if I'm in a healthy state of mind, body, and spirit, I give them grace.
Absolutely.
I offer them love. If I'm not in a good place of mind, body, and spirit, I give them the old me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that anymore. And so,
or you just miss a mark.
Yeah.
Don't have the energy, won't put it into it.
I'm
I've done
good.
that. I've done that. Having a shit day, and I didn't stop and help that person that I should have maybe. You know, I wasn't there. It wasn't available.
What we do here, and when I say here, not in the studio, but what we do here together collectively is the wolf pack. What we do is raised by wolves. What we do going out from here is help people realize that, hey, you don't have to do this alone, because it is free. Life is hard. I don't know if y'all understand that. Life is hard.
It is.
Right? There are people who've been where you are. There are people who are a little bit ahead of you in that path. There's people who are way far ahead of you in that path. But we're not going to say, oh, you're on this shitty path. We're going to say, welcome to the path that we're on. We hope that you find a path that suits you, that gives you a life that's worth living. And I think that Joe's a great example of that. I think that you're a great example of that. I think that I'm a great example of that. We all come from similar, different backgrounds. We all have different drugs of choice that were our main drugs of choice. Yeah.
It's the start of a joke. What happens when they take a heroin addict, crackhead, and an alcoholic, put them in a room?
Well, you get a podcast.
Yeah, you get a podcast.
Well, and you had said something to me a while back that I wanted to address, and you said that some people are reaching out and saying, "Hey, what drugs did you use? You know what? Well, you're just an alcoholic. You just used alcohol."
The two biggest questions that we're getting, and if it was only a few people, I would probably just eventually address it or address it on the website somewhere, is one, and I think it's coming from sober people. The first question is like, who are you and how are you running a sober podcast? Why are you running a sobriety podcast? They haven't mentioned me talking about my story at all. They haven't mentioned me, because if you look at sober podcasts, the first episode is usually the host's story. And so I purposely didn't do that. I wanted it like maybe episode 50 or so, where we recorded what's called a dry episode that you've seen it, I think.
I did.
But no one's really seen it.
To me.
I sent it to you too. The very, very first one. It wasn't even technically a Raised by Wolves podcast.
Sent it to me.
And so we kind of talk about that, and I get like choked up a little bit telling my story about how I got sober. But it's the number one question is like, who are you? Like, did you do drugs? Were you ever really an addict? Like,
they want to know what qualifies you.
What qualifies me? They're qualifying questions. So I figured I'd want to share that, you know? Well, I think two reasons why it qualifies me, if there's even the such thing, is that one, I was very much an alcoholic. I feel that I'm a recovered alcoholic. I feel that I could become an alcoholic very easily if I let myself fall back into that trap. Two, I might not have ever done hard drugs, but other than like, experimenting with some mushrooms, obviously weed, I've done acid in high school and things like that, but it was never my jam. I grew up where it was a normal part of my upbringing, having hard drugs. Everyone smoked weed. Weed was like same thing as cigarettes around my neighborhood, but hard drugs were very, very normal. I remember being so little to where I was like, I don't even think I was in 4th grade, and I was already seeing people using drugs intravenously, and I thought it was normal. You know what I mean? So
that's not normal.
yeah, I know.
I mean,
And
my
so-
neighborhood too, nothing but degenerates in Del
Well,
Paso
well-
Heights. I mean, and these are people like my friends' parents that I'm kicking it with, because my dad's gone working and I'm seeking community and family. And my friend's dad getting blacked out drunk and telling us crazy ass stories, and like mom smoking blunts and
Yeah.
over because she's on a fentanyl patch. That was normal to us.
Yeah, and that's another thing is that there's a part of my family that kind of comes from a criminal element, and so it was also very normal. I was kind of hidden. I was kind of sheltered from that side of the family up until my dad passed away, because even though he was a police officer, it was his side of the family. But it was very normal to sell drugs, deal drugs, be around drugs. My first ever job was picking up cigarette butts in front of a biker clubhouse. Later on, I found out it was because there was the code that they couldn't shoot up the place or do anything with kids there. So it was basically I was a shield. That was my first job.
Damn.
And so
Kid body shield.
yeah,
That's
but
classy.
the second, and I think so it doesn't run too over here. The second thing that people have been asking me, and it's quite a bit of questions. I'll either get them text messages. People that don't even actually watch that haven't probably even watched podcasts. Second biggest question is, how do we get involved with what you're doing? And I just wanted to, I think because I am leading the charge on that side, I want to talk a little bit about what Kava and Kratom is real fast. Obviously, you guys can help me with this.
Yeah.
But first off, talk about what we're doing and what our plans are. Number one is that we had originally opened a Kava and Kratom bar here in Vegas, and then I got married, kind of.
I was there.
Yeah, you were there. You married me, and I got there, and so we opened a Kava and Kratom bar out here, and I never felt like it was really what I guess you could say the right vision was. I felt like there's so many people in my ear when I was putting both the money and the build out together, to where I never felt like it was actually what my vision was. I was being pulled in one direction. Well, Kava is very Polynesian, so it should be very Polynesian themed, and it should respect the culture of the Polynesian islands. And there was the other side where it's like, well, this needs to be kind of cool enough to where people that want to go to a bar would actually go here. I mean, it's just all over the place. It should be a juice bar. It should be like a coffee shop. And then so it kind of happened, I think, in good timing, to where the lease was up there. I was moving back to California primarily, even though I'm still kind of back and forth, to where I decided to shut it down and kind of wait, because I've never actually had to look at it in the business side of things. I've never had a business venture go bad for me, as long as I've been the one that could really focus on it. And so I said, let's hold off on this. Let's do this right. And then we started going down a little bit of a different path a couple months ago, and I said the same thing. No, this is not what we're supposed to be doing. We need to build something here that's going to help people. The product should be very secondary, not the products. Then we hope that the people come because we're helping them. So when I first started drinking Kava, it was at Ninth Island. It was about a month after I got sober. I found Kava, and at Ninth Island Kava Lounge here, which, one of the partners, I don't really talk to him, or the other partner, Star, I'm completely cool with that guy. And he'll probably he watches the episodes.
Absolutely.
And so the thing was that they introduced me to Kava. 5 minutes after drinking Kava, I felt relaxed, and I said, I'm going to do something with Kava. And then I told Jimmy, and Jimmy was not on board with the Kava thing yet. And he was just like, be careful about that. A lot of people wouldn't consider you sober.
Totally.
And I was like, all right, but I know in my heart that this is going to be my way to stay sober, because after the not wanting to drink anymore wasn't a problem. The ritual of going somewhere and drinking was bothering me more. So at one point they were just giving me the remote when I'd go in there. So I knew I'd have to open something. And then I was totally against Kratom. So Kava, I firmly believe, and please correct me if you guys think I'm wrong here, Kava is probably the best solution, in my opinion, if you're going to replace alcohol with something to titrate off of. It's probably Kava. Because
I've used
it could
Kava
be mixed
with many friends, and
it could be
go.
It could be mixed with so many different things. It could be sweet, it could be earthy, it could be put in carbonated water. It could definitely replace alcohol, and it doesn't impair you. It just chills you out. We have a Kava lean, not to plug our own products or anything, but the one thing we just recently started making again was our Kava leans, flavored and unflavored. They're only available in Palm Desert. They will be available next week here in at Hope Botanicals that we'll get into. That's where I'm going to segue here. But, Hope Botanicals will carry them here. And then, and Kava, I think, a lot of Kava can actually be found at Herbally Grounded here in town, like traditional kava. But I would honestly suggest, especially until we're really, really kicking it, we've really kicked off what we're doing, is that people check out Root of Happiness that ships from Sacramento. They're in Sacramento. They're also in Roseville.
They're in Roseville.
And then
Elixir.
Elixir. So Root of Happiness. They have a website, Root of Happiness, Kava. Very easy to find, Root of Happiness. And then they ship, and they also have explanations on their website on how to use Kava. Mm-hmm. And then a second is I've become friends with Coulter, who owns in Grass Valley in Nevada City. He owns a place called Elixir, and it's a Kava bar as well. That also serves Kratom. And then if you're in San Diego area, keep plugging some friends. Kava Collective, solid dudes, old school punk rock guys that are sober. They have an amazing operation out of San Diego called Kava Collective. And then I was against Kratom, 100%.
I was too.
I was against Kratom 100%. And what happened with Kratom is that I was at a show in Arizona, and there was a guy in the VIP with me. And he told me that he's a heavy machine operator and he has kids there. It was all ages. The VIP area was all ages, so he had kids there. And he said that he wouldn't have those two little girls or be living he wouldn't be living a productive life as a heavy machine operator because he was a hardcore junkie heroin addict for years and nothing worked for him until he started taking Kratom. And so I started really looking into it, and I had to look at the biases. I had to say, like, where is this coming from? Oh, it'll destroy your liver. Oh, yeah, orange juice will fucking destroy your liver. You know what I'm saying? I was looking.
Yeah, it's all about how you use it, too.
And so just to kind of touch on that, I kind of hyped up Kava, but you know a hell of a lot more than me about, first off, before I forget, here in Vegas, definitely Hope Botanicals.
Yeah, go down
Berto's
there,
our
talk to
boy.
Berto.
Like, he's basically a damn partner now at this point. We send him so much business.
He's a
Berto's
rare
an
person.
amazing dude. He will probably, more than likely, he'll be the next episode of the podcast.
I mean, yeah, Berto's the kind of guy that
guy.
will drop everything he's doing and come across town to help
He delivers Kratom for free to people
who are struggling.
When they're struggling.
I mean, there's people that come into his shop that are kicking dope, or like for me, it wasn't about finding a substitute for heroin. For me, I got a really bad spine injury after I had been clean off of heroin, and my options were pills or booze. That's where I limited myself, real quick, something Jimmy said when he was talking about the wolf pack and what Raised by Wolves is about and what we're doing. The thing is none of us had anything like Raised by Wolves.
No.
So you were saying, we don't want you to think that this path is going to be shitty. It doesn't have to be shitty. For us, it was. We didn't have these resources, and that's what we're about. Like Joe said, we're not trying to sell these products first. That's why we're literally plugging the homies. Like, I don't know if we can put some links, in the bio.
We will. Like, I think on the bottom of this podcast, and I think on the website,
Yeah.
we're gonna link these. We'll eventually start selling all our own products, but we're doing it right this time.
Yeah.
We're doing
trying to
some
create
tests,
these pathways.
We're doing some
'cause
lab tests.
we
We're
know
doing
this
this
stuff
for
works.
wellness, not for wealth.
Yeah.
Wellness, not for wealth.
We know this
Exactly.
stuff works, and we want to plug you into it until we're able to provide it in-house at home in our place. But so for me, it was doctors were trying to put me on pain pills, and I'm like, you don't hear me, I write me a script for my two favorite pills, Roxycontin, 120 Roxycontins, those Perk 30s, the blues that you can crush up, snort them, bang them, whatever, and morphine pills. And I wanted to. I said in the last episode, there was a dog in the back of my head barking, yeah, run that, just walk out. Hop in your walker and
You
dip.
got him. You got him.
Hop in your walker and dip. We got this. Go. Shut up. And instead, I blew up on the doctor, and the nurse heard me yelling. I was like, I told you guys I'm a heroin addict. I can't do this, And I'm like in a walker after surgery and stuff. And then she's like, come here, hop in this wheelchair. Let's get you outside. I was still smoking cigarettes. So I was going to go smoke a cigarette. And then she's like, look, my cousin has a shop. This was in Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. She goes, my cousin has a shop over here, and he has holistic options for you that I think can help you. Because I was like, I can't make it through physical therapy. I can't even put my own socks on. I can't even walk right. How am I going to get better after this surgery has happened now, And so she provided me with that. And I started with way higher doses of Kratom than I would use now. But they told me pain management for up to 7 to even 10 years. pain management in Tennessee, what they're talking about is pills, right? There's clinics called pain management clinics out there,
Yep.
and you go, it's like a methadone clinic, but for various, pharmaceuticals and other narcotics. And that wasn't an option for me. That felt like another sentence. Like I'm going back into it. So for me, Kratom changed my life. And
I'm not trying to be rude. I forgot to tell my wife we're recording a second episode. She thought I was dead somewhere, so I had to reply to that.
Okay,
I looked
just
at
go
my
ahead
phone,
and
kept lighting up.
Go ahead and do it.
Oh no, I'm texting her back.
Yeah, so like for me, Kratom showed me a different option, right? Because I'm using booze because I can't do these pills and
Yeah.
stuff. So and it took me a few days to even go down there and take this girl serious.
Did you know that heroin and alcohol are only one molecule
I
off?
do know that. Yeah,
They're the most closely related substances in
absolutely.
the drug world.
And that's why it felt familiar.
Yeah, it felt familiar and
Yeah.
comfortable.
And the crazy thing is like heroin will make you do stuff when you come down. And yeah, you might do some crazy shit when you're on it, but you're pretty content when you're on it. Alcohol, when I would get on that stuff, we talked about it. It's just like this, the demon comes out. But anyways, Kratom helped me a lot because it made my path a little bit more clear. Now I can make it through physical therapy. And I went from walker or wheelchair options and being totally couch ridden for the better part of 2018 to being able to climb mountains. Like I was just telling you guys, I'm sore as heck right now because I just hiked up this massive thing in Valley of Fire and went and got it after a whole day of filming. So that's beautiful. Here I've come around. So Kratom can be used. It also can be misused. Everything can be misused. And so with Raised by Wolves, not only do we want to plug you into these products and these other alternative pathways, Jimmy and I have talked about this a lot when we were chilling out, writing up some of the literature, but also we want to provide you with all the information so that you're aware of how to use these things properly in a way that's going to benefit you and not lead you on to get you on a different substance pattern.
Yeah, we're not looking for folks to buy stuff.
No.
We're looking... We're letting folks know that they don't have to look any further.
Totally.
Right? That
Yeah.
they can come come as you are.
Yeah.
Nothing that you bring and put into our container is going to break the container because we've got so much experience and so much life to be lived that whatever you bring is welcome.
Yeah.
And it may be funky for you and it may be hard and it may be crazy, but the second you say you're in, you're in. There's no initiation rites. You don't get the special tag and the sticker that says I'm in. If you say you're in, you're in. And then there's
your choice.
Yeah, there's opportunity for connection. There's opportunity for creativity. There's opportunity for community.
And opportunity makes you think of what? Hope.
Hope.
Right?
So you get well. We are
Stay well.
We went from dope dealers to hope dealers, right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
going from this isolatory, we know that neglect, the number one cause of neglect is isolation.
Absolutely.
And so don't do this alone anymore.
Yeah.
Come and hang out with us. And when we say come and hang out with us, it'll be with dudes like us.
Yeah.
And chicks like our wives and people we hang out with.
Yeah.
And it's not it's
People that understand.
Yeah, it's not you're not gonna be condemned or judged. You're gonna be welcomed with open arms and loved. And so in a healthy way, that's the other thing. The healthy love is huge.
Community. It's like
man.
you said, come as you are. Like, the thing about the recovery community, and again, I will not take away from the NA meetings, the AA meetings, the Cocaine Anonymous meetings. These are all wonderful things. Sex Addicts Anonymous. All these things can do great things because they provide you with community. There's also toxic things, but that's the human nature to take something in the wrong direction, But the thing of it is like, if we can empower you, if we can show you that you don't have to be alone, each one of us, based on those programs that are implemented in us when we are kids, right? We have this enemy within. And the enemy within, when we're alone, is very loud.
Yep.
But when you surround yourself with the kind of people living the kind of life that you dreamed of, the kind of life you don't think you're worthy of, but you want so bad, inevitably you're going to absorb that. You're going to find yourself if you just don't give up. Just have the courage to step up with the homies, run with the wolf pack,
Yep. It'll be crazy. We'll be walking. You'll come in. You'll be walking behind us, and you'll be walking right next to us, and then you'll realize that we're walking behind you because somebody else is walking next to you on this side that needs you to show them
Absolutely.
how to get involved with this and how to get well. So
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
I think to simplify this is that I think reaching out to us on our social media page, personally, through our social media page, through the website, is that we could point you, no matter what, one of us at least is going to be on the other end of that message. We can point you in the right direction, and we can point you to the right direction, and not just what products you should be using or can be using to replace what you're using, but we can walk you through essentially a wolf pack of products, and we will, and the plans really is to start that wolf pack where each pack of whatever we have for each person, that pack of goods is a little bit different for each person to kind of help them.
It's customizable.
And
to be clear, there are those people who will get on alternative pathways and they'll stay on them forever. There are also people who will get on alternative pathways and titrate down and use less and less and less and less because their amino acids are balanced, because their nutrition is balanced, their spirituality is healthy, their life is healthy, and they don't need, because the brain heals itself, they don't need the supplement at such a high level.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I think honestly we covered a lot. I have no idea how much attention we're gonna keep with a long episode like this, but I'm hoping that most people watch this whole thing through, because we not only covered a lot of things, we're gonna pull inserts out of this, when need be. Totally. But I appreciate you guys. Like, you guys are family to me. Like, I thought it was very important that, because everyone is in the same place at the same time, that we record not only the episode, talk about what you're doing, but to kind of put a face to, not a face to name, but kind of put some, you said right, the humans behind the wolf pack.
And it's like, there's examples of that, like something that came to mind when we were talking a moment ago, and I think this is important to share with people so you understand what we're talking about when we say wolf pack community, right? What was this, maybe a month ago, a few weeks back? We're all in a group text, right? The homies in the group text with us, he reaches out, and I think me and you saw it first. And he's basically, hey, I got this guy. He's a good guy, right? He's got kids. He has all these reasons why he can't get clean or why he can't stay clean, but he wants to get clean. And, there's fear. There's all this stuff going on. So I'm giving input. I'm encouraging the dude. The dude's saying he can't go to treatment. And I'm saying, dude, you got to go to treatment, period. There's no version of this where we just give you money to get in a sober house, right? Jimmy comes, like, after we've had these conversations, he's like, my bad, guys. I just landed off a plane. Let me do something. Boom. Jimmy's got dude to bed in a treatment center. That's what we're talking about. Resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's
did that guy go to treatment?
Nope.
He didn't go to treatment. And that's the thing. Sometimes people are going to do that, but the fact is that we may have planted a seed in him that hopefully will be watered in the long run. But just having those options, and it doesn't start and end with us. It's not that kind of a thing. It's a thing where we plug you into systems where you recognize these kind of systems elsewhere.
Yeah, and for me, it's not like, well, I gave that dude a shot and it's all good. He could call me tomorrow, and you know what? I'll get him a bed.
Yeah, well, you're always open.
A big reason. And I think I'll, at least in with what I have to say today with this, is another big reason why I think that this is important is because you can plant the seeds with people. You don't know when in their life it's going to grow. Somebody that's very close personal friend of mine, Jimmy helped pull some strings for. I can't even say pull some strings, like put her on the right path to get into some treatment, things like that, and it didn't stick. At the time it wasn't right time. Yeah. But because of kava, kratom, even a little bit of cannabis and things like that, as far as I know, at least, she's been on the right path for some time now. She's reconnected with family. She's
and those are the building blocks. Like, these things are not the beginning and the end. Like Jimmy was saying, for some people, this is going to be a stepping stone to get you. For me, like the kratom, getting me to a point where I could do the physical therapy to heal myself, getting me to a point to where now I want to drink alcohol less. So I'm healing relationships with family, and those things, healing the relationships, of doing these positive things that these help you get to the next place. That's actually what's going to heal you. It's not these alternative medicines. However, Western medicine is built to spill.
Yeah, and we have a whole thing that I forgot to even talk about. It's like, after we're working with a company now that after you get yourself together, and you're sober, and what's next is that we're working with a clinic called Be More with JC, the co-host here. Be More, his clinic will help you get your serotonin levels, your hormone levels, your testosterone levels right, that you've destroyed and depleted all of those years, and get you back on track. And they're working with doctors, things to do that. And I think that's huge.
It is.
Because once you're sober, what's next?
Once you don't have to just live with the damage you've done to your brain. There's ways to naturally
absolutely
repair.
Get it healed.
Well, I'm personally good. I don't know how you guys feel.
No, it's been good. It's always good to always good to visit with my brothers. I'm gonna just send one.
But thank you, everyone. Thank you
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
watching. Thank
Hopefully
you guys.
some of you out there are feeling this, and if you're stuck in addiction right now, like, I just want to tell you, it doesn't have to be this way. If there's a piece of you anywhere in the back of your mind that remembers a better version of yourself or imagines a better version of yourself, it is possible. Each one of us was a monster in our own right. You know, we struggled with violence, you know, sex addictions, everything. And we were people that we couldn't look in the mirror. And now we're
Yeah.
people that walk around today, not prideful, but we are proud of who we are. And we are proud that our pain led to something that can make a difference in someone else's life. So if you're out there and any of this resonates with you, reach out, keep following. Like, we want to help you, man. Like,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
woman,
That's
whoever,
that's a good word.
you're not alone.
And I'll close with this.
Yeah.
I hear so many people say, I just want to get my life back. You couldn't pay me enough money to live the life that I used to.
Yeah.
I don't want my old life back. I was afforded an opportunity to create a new life. And one of the really cool things is every single day when I wake up, I'm afforded that opportunity over and over and over again to create a new life that is actually going somewhere that's worth living. And so it's our invitation to you to join the Wolf Pack, get involved, get well. And then our expectation is that you're going to help somebody else.
Yeah. Providing you with a choice and realizing you got a choice. That's a beautiful thing,
Yeah.
man.
It's good, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is.
Thanks, guys. Check out
Cool.
our website or our socials. If you or somebody you know is struggling, and we might be able to, and you think we might be able to help, it's at RZDxWLVS.
And
Same thing on the website.
Yeah.
RZDxWLVS.com for those
Yeah.
that are listening. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, bye.
have a good day.